All righty, let's get started then. Really excited for today's panel. We wanted to welcome you to four credit unions sharing insights on member experience in a digital world, an especially relevant topic for today's day and age, as you all know. So my name is Dan McKelly. I'm the CEO and co-founder here at Glia. Glia is reinventing how financial institutions support customers and members in a digital world. So we empower FIs to provide everything from messaging, bots, SMS, all the way up to co-browsing and video banking, all within one seamless package. Now at Glia, we are very passionate about consumer experience. It drives our business strategy and it drives our product pipeline. Now, credit unions share a similar passion for serving their members. And today I'm really excited to bring together four institutions that are truly forward thinkers in member experience. So we'll kick off today by going around and getting to know our panelists. I'd like to call on each of them and give them 20 to 30 seconds to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their role as well as their credit union. So we'd love to learn about each of you. Let's go ahead and start with Andrea. I think you're unmuted there.
I'm
There
sorry.
we go. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Guetta. I am Chief Operating Officer of IDB Global Federal Credit Union. I've worked with this credit union for 5 years, and I absolutely love this credit union. We serve, I would say, our members are all over the world. We are a closed-set credit union, and we serve specifically the employees of two international organizations, the Inter-American Development Bank and IDB Invest. And so we're unique in the sense that we have members who've never set foot at our branch and bank with us every day.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. All right, Brooke, would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. I'm Brooke Hamilton. I work at the Twin Star Credit Union in the state of Washington. It is a cloudy 60 degrees here. It's supposed to be sunny because it does rain 9 months out of the year here. So I'm the member experience manager. I'm in a brand new role here at Twin Star. I'm just starting my 9th month. So learning tons and so excited to be here to share what we're up to right now.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us, Brooke. Janine?
Sure. Hi, I'm Janine. I work at Numerica Credit Union. We are based out of Spokane, Washington, but our footprint's a little bit bigger. We are in Tri-Cities, Wenatchee, and then, of course, North Idaho. So we have a pretty good size footprint. I've been with the credit union for going on 12 years. I have worked in the call center the entire time. Something about it just works for me. I have managed the call center for, 6 years now. So I just love it, and I love Numerica and how our purpose and how we take care of our members.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Mike?
Hi, everyone. This is Mike Smith at PACCU. We're a credit union based out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'm a digital channels product owner for the credit union, basically overseeing all things digital banking related, online banking, the mobile app. We have some other applications as well. I've been working there for 3 years now, and I'm loving every bit of it. Awesome to have an impact on the members' everyday banking with our credit union. And really appreciate the opportunity to speak today for you guys.
Thank you so much, Mike, and everyone. So all four of these credit unions, they vary in terms of geography, branch strategy, and the communities that they serve. But what really unites them is excellence in how they serve their members. And that's why I'm really excited to bring them all together today to talk about how they are doing that, and a couple of general housekeeping items for everybody on the call. One is that we want to try to keep it as tactical as possible, right? We want to talk about concepts and make sure that everybody on the call can take away experiences and learn from what you're doing. So as much as you can share things that can help others on the call, that would be fantastic. Feel free to challenge yourselves and disagree with others if the mood strikes. As you know, we welcome the dialogue, the debate, no problem. And for the audience, please chat in your questions at any time in the Q&A box. And I hope to get to some of those at the end, depending on how the discussion is going. So if anything comes to mind that you'd like to ask the panelists today, don't hesitate to pop it into the Q&A box, and we'll address it if we get a chance. So please do that. Last thing is I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. We're a huge fan of video chat at Glia. So I want to make sure that you can all see our faces here. Hopefully everything is nice and clear. And you know, if you want to turn on grid view, so that's easier, please feel free to do so. It should be in the upper right-hand corner of the WebEx, so that you can see us all at the same time. And with that, I'd like to kick it off with our first question. So how does your credit union think of member strategy overall? So let's start with Janine on this one, please.
Sure. I like this question. I think that this is something Numerica does really well, is being very clear about who we are and what we're trying to do with our members. So for us, it all aligns back to our core purpose, which is enhancing lives, fulfilling dreams, and building communities. And so our member service strategy is really built off of that. And so we've developed some guiding principles. We call them our CARES. So our CARES are connect, ask, resolve, enhance, and strengthen. And so those are just the behaviors that we want to exemplify when we're serving our internal and external members. So that's really the driving force behind our membership strategy, is how do we truly care for our members, truly care for our team, and truly care for our community. And a small but impactful example of this in action, it's a small thing, but to me it means a lot, managing the call center. In a call center environment, you have to pull calls. I mean, it's one of those tasks of a call center manager that's maybe not the most favorite, time consuming, but I think it's impactful to do that. And when we take a look at how we want our agents to interact with our members, we have CARES in mind. So when I'm reviewing phone calls, our template for that is actually CARES. So I actually give them feedback on, this is how well you connected with your member. You asked additional questions to find a need. How well did you resolve the issue they're calling about? And then enhance for me is probably the most important. I'm looking for you to enhance the relationship. Sometimes that is referring additional product or service, and that's great to help build our credit union, help us grow, but it's also the small things we do to enhance the relationship. That can be mentioning, hey, did you know that we have this chat service on our website? You can chat us anytime, or fingerprint authentication on our app. So those little things enhance the relationship. That's what makes our members loyal to us. And so that's why I feel like CARES is such an important way that drives the behaviors we're looking for, that really makes us able to deliver on our promise in our core purpose.
I love that. And it's, you know, that consistency, right? Being able to kind of apply those principles throughout in training and quality, and it's really powerful. I love also what you said about enhance. I think that practicing next issue avoidance, right, and making sure that you're anticipating what the member may need in the future.
Yeah.
Fantastic. How about Brooke? What do you think how do you think about, you know, the credit union member strategy overall at Twin Star?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I'm in a new role, so that may imply that we're trying to put more structure and actually build a program around that. So we've always been member-centered. That will never change for us, but how we actually approach it, we're trying to create the bookends and give our staff the guidance. So we're in our infancy step in that process. We've just created a member journey map. We are have an MX designer, so we have a small team now, which is really exciting. We sent an enormous survey out to our members, the first one digitally ever. Hadn't sent a survey out of this nature since I think 2003. So actually asking our members, how are we doing and how can we do better? And then we use those results to define our member experience principles. I wish I could share them with you, but we haven't shared them out with the organization yet because we're still developing everything. But we have identified key drivers and linking those to specific behaviors. So excited to hear, Janine, about the behavior piece. That's exactly where we're aligning for us. So we're excited and thrilled about everything that's to come. We know that what we put in place will also serve our purpose, which is investing in people and empowering success. And those people are really our employees and our members. So our member experience is one of 4 strategic pillars that the organization has defined as our long-term planning and goals. So that's also really exciting to have the time and resources put towards it.
Fantastic, Brooke. And you know, we've talked about that member journey map, so I definitely want to dig into that a little bit as we're going through today, because it's a really interesting exercise to think through and a lot of great insight coming out of that. So thanks for sharing. Andrea, do you want to go next? Credit union, how does the credit union think of member servicing overall?
So I think there's a lot of components to our member service strategy, but I think to highlight a couple, I would say that we like to give our members a voice. I think that's very important. Our credit union is member owned, and so we want to hear what they have to say. And how we do that is we have surveys at all touch points, whether they're visiting our branch or reaching our call center or even originating a wire. We sent out a survey to find out, first of all, how their experience was. And of course, we have good ratings, celebrate the wins with our staff. But also, I think it's an opportunity for us to really discover any gaps, any opportunities for growth, or any changes that we need to make to our processes. So I think that's critical. We also use different type of surveys like the Net Promoter Score. We do that at least once a year, and we evaluate, where we're at compared to other financial institutions, but also with ourselves. How did we do last year, and compare it to that? And we also did something different, similar to what Brooke said. We sent out a survey. It was about member satisfaction, but also like a discovery survey. We wanted to find out what our members' needs are, what their priorities were. And we went against what's really recommended in terms of the length of the survey. I think we had max 88 questions, which is crazy, but we had a very good response rate. I think it was about 12%. And, I think the engagement itself just told us how satisfied our members are and how they're willing to share what their needs are. And just a couple of tips on that response rate. We took a look at everything from our subject line to we engaged them with prizes and everything else. So we looked at everything, even the design of the survey itself. So we tried to make sure that survey was engaging. And then I think after gathering all this data, we really make data-driven decisions. That's another key component. We gather the data, whether it's through surveys or through member behavior on our website or online banking tool. But we use all that data to really make decisions. In fact, it guided us through our strategic plan last year as we were developing it. That was really what was guiding us. And last but not least, we made human capital one of our strategic pillars. We feel like if we invest in professionals who are prepared and really love what they're doing, they're going to provide great service. And so I feel like we have a very passionate team who is willing to go above and beyond serving our members and who are actively looking for areas of where we can grow. And so our team is actually also proposing ways that we can do better. So I think that's what I would say about our member service strategy.
Excellent. And there's a lot of challenges with using qualitative and quantitative data for customer experience to figure out how to best leverage that within the experiences that we provide our members, So we're definitely going to get into that as we go deeper into the conversation with evaluating the best uses of data, what data are we tracking, how do we think of data around member experience is a really interesting topic, I think. And yeah, amazing that you got that high of a response rate. It goes to show you, that you're talking about little things, that add up to a big difference in terms of how members provide you with their voice. So that's amazing. Thanks for sharing, Andrea. Mike, can you give us some insight into how you think about this topic at PSECU?
Yeah, PSECU is a little bit different compared to most credit unions. We've always been a remote delivery credit union. So we have 2 branches today, but those branches don't exchange cash. They don't really have the same type of experience from a member standpoint as most credit unions do. So that really means that members are interacting with us either through digital banking channels or through our contact centers. So it's extremely important for us to just be there for them and make sure that, kind of like some of the other panelists have talked about, making sure that, when they're on the phone, we need to make sure that all of their needs and wants are handled during that contact. And it's not something they can just go and work out over several meetings in the branches and so forth. So really that's at the center of everything that we're doing at PACCU. We're also, much like you said, we have to pay super close attention to the different feedback channels that we have. And since we do have really a big digital footprint in that way, and we don't get a lot of, the foot traffic, people coming in, asking questions and so forth, we have to pay very close attention to those feedback channels and making sure we get all that data together, review it, make improvements, make data-driven decisions, and kind of improve the experience from beginning to end over time is a really critical piece for all of the credit union, but even more specific into the digital banking area that I work in.
Excellent. And so we'll go into digital in a second because that's going to tie to my next question. But since we're on the topic of surveys, I kind of want to go a little bit off script here. How do you guys think about, and anybody can jump in here, feel free. How do you think about how many surveys is too many? Where do you actually introduce the surveys? Kind of how do you holistically think about the voice of the member and bringing that together with those touch points? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that because a few of you mentioned that. So it's a critical piece of understanding where you need to improve, right? So, or where you're doing great work. So I'd love to hear if there are any other thoughts from anyone that wants to jump in around the topic of surveys and member voice.
Dan, I'd like to share. I think you brought up a great point in the sense that, sometimes it can be too many surveys. And we ourselves looked at that at some point and just try to look at, can we do a report to see, how many times a member called to avoid sending them multiple surveys in a week. So we did look at that. Of course, at the beginning, we made that mistake of going out and sending too many surveys, but we practically were looking at how can we determine, how many times a member called in a week. I think that was, I would say, where we focused, and then also the visiting of the branch, because if a member prefers to visit the branch, they're going to visit the branch more than once a week. I guess for us, when we say once a week, it's because we were located in the same building where they work. So for them, it was just coming downstairs during lunch, and so they could do that more than once a week. But I'm assuming that if the branch is not located in the same building where they work, maybe they wouldn't visit that often. But it's definitely something that we were looking at. And then, the Net Promoter Score, we try not to do it more than once a year. So, yeah. So I think one word of advice is when we're putting these surveys together, I think just coming up with ways to reduce the amount of times that it's sent out, it's very important. Because then members won't want to share their experience anymore. Or it doesn't seem as relevant.
Definitely. Any other thoughts around that from the others on the call?
I was just going to add, survey fatigue is a real thing, and so trying to balance that is challenging. We're not sending surveys out for each touch point like you are, Andrea, so we are on like a quarterly rotation, and we try not to send more than one during that quarter. But we have started some new experience surveys and are toying around with maybe sending more than one during that quarter. So I think about it a lot. I'm someone who will take a survey every time, but I know that I'm not like everyone else. The other thing that kind of keeps me up at night, though, is when we do get our survey responses, they're always so positive, which is great, but who's not telling us what we don't know? And so how do we get further reaching from people like me who love to give surveys and tell you how amazing you are, and find the people who maybe aren't having that as great of an experience, but just don't want to share it?
Such a good point. It's you want to hear from the people that are not taking the surveys, right? And I think that one strategy is sort of thinking about how you can weave it into the different experiences that you're providing it and kind of piecemeal a little bit, piecemeal those questions a little bit more. That's something that we've seen work as well. But the more that you can get different types of responses, crafting the questions in certain ways to get at areas of improvement, it can be tricky, but really interesting. I like that point, Brooke. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I want to talk a little bit about digital. So, we have obviously the overarching concept of member servicing, and that encompasses a number of different things. How does digital really fit into that? Strategy? Maybe we can start this one off with Mike.
Sure. So, digital is pretty much everything we do at PACCU, whether, because I mentioned it's a remote delivery strategy. So I think roughly around 70% of our membership are currently signed up in digital channels. So that kind of gives you, an idea on, what percent are in there actually transacting. And because of that, we have to make sure that we prioritize what members need inside of those digital channels. So, and that also means that the experience has to be seamless. It has to be easy. It has to be easy to find. And it really has to take care of their everyday needs as far as, banking with us as a credit union. So it's kind of everything. That's where it gets a little interesting on this question for us because, we don't have the branches. People can't come in and, sit down and talk and make appointments.
One of the points that you talked about with me in the past was sort of aggregating data from a number of different sources when it comes to digital. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Sure, that's a huge challenge. When you get a lot of data and a lot of feedback, it's how do you make sense of it all? What we've found on our side is that there are definitely things you can do to bring it all together. Some things are a little bit easier than others. But what we found is that we tend to prioritize different types of channels for different feedback. So whether it's messages that come in from the call centers, whether it's I think Andrea mentioned voice of the customer, net promoter score, reviewing things like that. We'll also do review feedback, whether it's app stores or in-app feedback. We do studies and studies on different functionality and features. We have different scorecards that we keep an eye on. So it's a mix of qualitative and quantitative feedback, trying to bring it all together. I think the other big thing to just focus on for us is that we like to keep the approach very cyclical. So generally speaking, before we do something, we're always constantly monitoring feedback and trying to figure out what's the next best thing for members. Again, keeping the member in the center of it. Once we start making progress in that area, we do a lot of beta testing. We have a marketing community group that we leverage, and we try to get our products in their hands ahead of time so that we can get that feedback before it goes out to the general public. So we do a lot of that. And then again, it's cyclical. So once we wrap up that study and we feel comfortable with going out to production to our members, then we're constantly monitoring that feedback and kind of reevaluating things as time passes.
That's great. Janine, tell us a little bit about digital at Numerica. Fits into member strategy.
Yeah, this is a fun one for me because this is something that I'm really passionate about. At Numerica, there's one thing that we do well with our digital strategy. Our IT team, they're crazy smart. Look up to them a lot. So when they're looking for vendors to partner with to deliver digital service to our members, they're really looking for vendors that can be a true partner, not a sell you and gone. And that's something that they take pride in and they do a good job of. And so, but we also do that internally. We have an e-services team that I manage in the contact center. We call ourselves Digital Experience Center. And we have an e-services team. So we are really closely in tune with our members. We know what features they want in digital banking. We know what they want to be able to do on our website. And like Mike mentioned, our digital transactions are around 75%. We have a really good a lot of our members are using our digital channels. So it's important that we are able to deliver. It's important that it really all of our digital channels are a really good example of our brand and provide the service that we strive for. So one thing that we do really well internally is not only does IT partner with vendors, they also partner with e-services. So we meet monthly. I actually have a meeting later today. We're going to meet with IT team, web development, and we talk about what's going on online banking, mobile banking, bill pay, all of it. And we said, this is a hurdle for our members. This is causing a little bit of friction. Hey, this solution might work really well. And so we look for vendors together. We test them out together. Anytime we put anything live in our website, mobile banking, my team is the one that tests it because we have that member view. We know how members use our services. So it's really good that we have that partnership. It's been very successful.
I love that. I mean, that interdepartmental collaboration is so fundamental, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have, especially when you're talking about the member servicing team on the contact center side, right? You are they call it the front line for a reason, right? So you're seeing those interactions happening on a day-to-day basis. You can leverage so much of that information back to the digital teams. Enhancing those experiences becomes absolutely fundamental, right? So I really like that, and creating those deliberate collaborative touch points within an organization. It's a virtuous cycle. You know, all of those kind of collaborations feed each other. So I love that, Janine. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Andrea, tell us a little bit about it from your perspective. Digital. You also have a unique challenge as it pertains to this.
Yeah, but before I share, I just want to say, Janine, I think that's a great idea. That's something I'm going to bring back to in terms of having the IT or the call center service team test things out first. I think that's a great idea. But in terms of digital, I think that today we really would be non-functional without the right digital tools, especially for us. We have one branch, which I will share, that because of COVID right now, it's shut down. Our branch is in our sponsor's building, and so they're taking the necessary precautions for safety reasons, and so our branch is really inaccessible right now. And plus, we serve members in about 76 countries, and so digital is critical to us. First of all, we consider our online banking platform our second branch. Our members should be able to do the majority of items that they do at the branch on that platform, and also on mobile banking. But we know that that's not the case today, and so that's what we're striving for. We're trying to make sure that they can, request a debit card or apply for an account, place a travel notice on online banking. And so we're trying to make sure that they can do all those tasks online. But also we're coming up with creative ways to make sure that they can do things from, I like to think all the time, from their home, from their couch. I personally know that, I have a toddler, a 2-year-old, and when I need to do things related to my to banking, I want it to be quick, and I want it to be simple, and I want to do it from where I am at the time. So right now, just to share, we're working on a contact update form where our members can validate their identity by taking a picture of their ID and then taking a selfie, and then it'll make sure that that their picture matches, and then I'll take them to the form, which actually grabs their information from their ID and pass it on to the form. So for me, it's like, if wherever I'm at, if I have my ID handy, I can update my information quickly or do anything else like update my tax form, depending on the situation. But I think those are the things that we're thinking about. How can a member bank with us wherever they're at? And then also, how can they reach us wherever they're at? Like I said, we have members all over the world, and so we don't want them to be paying, for their long distance calls. Especially if, if on average a call takes about 6 to 7 minutes, that can get pricey if you have to call just to get a question answered or get support. And so we also want to make sure that we have the right digital tools to provide them that service. And also that warm service. I think credit unions stand out for providing warm service. And I think to have warm service, sometimes it's key to have that face-to-face interaction. And so video call can even make it warmer. You can be I started out at the contact center, and I felt so proud when someone called and asked for me personally. But I know that having that face-to-face interaction makes it even better. And so I think having those digital tools is just critical to serve our membership.
That's great. I like what you said about time, right? There's this really interesting dynamic that happens today with all of us as consumers, where time and effort are really, if you can think about your digital allows you to tackle the dimensions of time and effort for consumers in a really interesting way, facilitating the member's life, and that scores you a lot of points across the board on any type of survey that we would put in front of a member. So I love that, and having the optionality, right? Completeness of options, really important. Brooke, I'd love to hear from you as well. So, one of the things, and feel free to take this a totally different direction, no problem. One of the things that I like that you mentioned before that we've talked about in the past is the journey mapping and how important that is to digital. But feel free to, share whatever you'd like about how you think about digital playing into the overall member servicing strategy.
Yeah, thanks. It's so important to us that we have embedded myself and our UX designer in our digital banking team that has been hired to plan and implement a new digital platform. So it's been very exciting to be part of that and look at our existing experience and our current state with our journey mapping, for example, and using our survey results to then better define what kind of features we're going to offer our members in the future. Michael, I love that you guys know what your members want. We think we know what our members want. We're really trying to confirm and affirm that. And look for ways to make it easy on them and make it seamless. Our survey results told us clearly that our members want digital. A lot of them are using it. I'd say we're pre-COVID at 60%. I think we're a lot more after COVID because we did shut down all our branches. So we've actually been using an experience survey to target our new online banking users, for example, over the last 3 months and ask them how satisfied they are and then what features is missing from their experience. And it's been really eye-opening because we've discovered that some of our members don't know we have a mobile app. Mind blown, right? Like, how is that being missed? But it's such an opportunity for us to go back and look at where are the places in that journey that somehow they don't know that exists. The other thing that's really exciting about being in the digital space is we get this opportunity to be innovative, to push us out of the status quo. I mean, we've had digital banking for a while now, but not really building and utilizing it for 2020, 2021, right? And really pushing our abilities further than where we've been in the past. So it's first and foremost making sure we have the member's voice present for whatever we build or whatever we provide in the future.
Right. And it's also interesting also as you roll out new digital experiences, how important driving the adoption of those experiences becomes, right? Because you can create amazing journeys. You take the voice, you're leveraging that, you're putting all this effort in, and then we somehow, sometimes forget the last step of like, well, we have to let them know that this exists, and we have to reinforce it and provide the adequate support, for them to adopt it. So it's one of those things that really important not to neglect too. So I love that. We've been talking a lot about kind of having the pulse on the member, right? And understanding their voice and understanding what's important to measure. So I want to go again a little bit off script and take this into more of a discussion of the metrics of member experience, right? And we have a few questions that are trickling in about that as well. So let's go with that question. I'd love to hear about what is the measure of member experience that you have used most frequently as a credit union, and how it has that changed in the last 6 months, especially with everything that's happening? Are you thinking about that differently, right? It would be interesting to hear about that. How about we start with Mike on this one?
Sure. Yeah. So this whole return on experience type conversation is a tricky one because it's sometimes very hard to quantify. What does that actually mean? This is a big thing too, because usually when we start talking about that, it normally the conversation directly translates right to dollars, and how does that bring the credit union forward in a number of ways. For our side, normally what we do is we do a lot of qualitative type research. It's understanding the sentiment of our members. Again, as mentioned before, we do look at things like quantitative studies, and we look for areas where maybe we missed opportunities as far as maybe bringing in new dollars based on different services we're offering. But a lot of the time, our priorities go towards that qualitative type approach when it comes to experience. Mm-hmm. And the strategies that we have inside, like I mentioned with beta, with our community groups and so forth, that really helps get us ahead of, problems that could potentially come in down the road if we didn't do some of that homework up front. So it's a little bit of extra homework that you do, ahead of time that maybe you didn't want to spend doing, but at the end of the day, it pays dividends down the road when you're not dealing with an issue or poor experience or a poor journey map, like Brooke said, related to something that you're putting out there for members.
You talked about the qualitative. We've talked about the qualitative aspect of feedback in the past, Mike. You did mention something last time we chatted that was interesting, which was that you also are measuring the drop off, right? As members are going through journeys, that's a very good quantitative data point that you can be collecting throughout a variety of experiences. I mean, in reality, you can think of a lot of different things as a funnel, right? And then you can start realizing where those gaps and where that friction is. So that's a good quantitative piece of data, right, that you guys use.
Exactly. We've one of the big things for us is, because we are a digital credit union, we need people in the door. We need people to enroll in digital and know that it's out there. I know it's funny, like Brooke mentioned, people, it's like mind blown, don't realize that there's a mobile app out there, or their first inkling to make a payment isn't to just log into digital banking and make a payment. So it's really about making sure that the barrier is not on the technology, and it's more about maybe just the knowledge piece of it, which can come over time, and trying to reinforce and make sure that people are using those channels. One of the things, and I'm sure this is probably the case for all the credit unions on the panel today, is that a decent chunk of our membership comes from indirect lending. So they go to a dealership, they get an auto loan through PSECU. How do we get them in the door so that they become a new digital member, so that they have that self-service option available to them? But then also, how do we think about targeting them for the future and making sure that, for the long haul, they become a PSECU member and they see the value that we can offer them every day?
Love that. Right at the nexus of qualitative and quantitative in that regard. So thanks for sharing, Mike. Janine, one concept that I spoke about with you in the past was occupancy. And so I'd love you to share a little bit about that. And just in general, how do you think about the metrics, right? Let's talk about member servicing metrics and what you consider now versus before. Would love to get your take on this.
Well, I think what we spoke about is in the call center, occupancy is a difficult thing to kind of capture, because you hire X number of agents because you take this number of phone calls on average. And then you have to take out the fact that people have PTO, they call it sick, all of those things. And so making sure that you are able to strike a balance between being able to have enough agents available to serve your membership without making them wait a long time, because that's a big deal, part of the member experience, but also being good stewards of our members' money and making sure you're not, overstaffing to a point where you're not being efficient. So that's definitely a difficult balance to strike, and making sure that you have an accurate idea of what your actual occupancy in your call center environment is. And that is not easy to figure out, because every institution operates differently. Numerica has certain requirements of our employees. We have monthly meetings with our employees. We do dialogues. We do projects, and those are all things that we want our employees to do because it's an investment in them and their career at Numerica. So you have to factor in all of those pieces when you're staffing your call center to make sure your members are served. And then additional training. It's a tricky sign.
Well, another topic that we discussed, and I'd love you to bring up here, is so there were a few questions that were trickling in, as I mentioned, about these metrics. And one of the things that someone brought up was CSAT, right? And I'd love to, you mentioned to me that NPS is really important to you guys, as well as how you think about answer time, right? Getting to the calls quickly, and then not focusing on talk time too much. So tell us a little bit more about your philosophies around kind of the time associated with serving the member, and then the NPS, CSAT, kind of share a little bit about those loyalty metrics to us.
Sure. So for us, we do still have a metric of how quickly we answer a phone call. So our goal for all queues is to answer 80% of our phone calls within 30 seconds. It's a pretty typical call center stat. For us, it's very, very important because being able to get to our members right away is really how we deliver on the service that we want to provide. I don't think it's the end-all be-all because a member might be able to forgive you if they had to wait for a minute if you provide stellar service. So it's not the end-all be-all. We also do not look at talk time as a way to measure our success because over time, the reasons members call us is way different. We used to be transactional. I used to do bounce transfers all the time when I started 12 years ago. That is no longer the case. Members only call you when they really need you. And it's normally long things. And so we don't look at our talk time. We know where it's at, don't get me wrong, and we can definitely coach to it if someone's a little too short or a little too long, but it's definitely not a measure we use to say, yes, we're taking good care of our members or not. Like you mentioned, we use NPS as well. I think that we're a little bit guilty of survey fatigue, but we're working on it. But during the last 6 months, one thing that our organization did that's important is a lot of times if you want to know what's going on with your members, first step is your employees, right? They know. They're the ones talking to our members. How they're feeling, how they're doing is really a reflection on it brings up issues that are going on with our members as well. So we actually submitted or did a COVID survey for our employees. And we're like, tell us what's going on. Yeah. And we got all kinds of really good feedback. And a lot of opportunities came from that to say, okay, during this time, dealing with our members, these are things that we need to look at and focus on. This is how we can improve our communication. And so we took a big look at ourselves internally during that survey and said, okay, these are the areas we're falling short. These are the areas we're doing well. How can we capitalize on that? So not only do we survey our members for growth opportunities, we're surveying our employees.
Love that. You know, one trend that's very important for member servicing is what you alluded to there with the complexity of the inquiries that the contact center receives, right? As you get better at digital, as you get more proficient with automation, as you make those tools and journeys more and more available to members and they become more comfortable with them, you know, then you start seeing the calls and the interactions that are coming into the servicing centers become more complex because a lot of the stuff that's simple and easy, the member can do on their own. So it places challenges, but it also has, you know, you have a lot of opportunities to differentiate on service there if you do it right. You know, you could really stand out because that's ultimately what's going to make or break that member servicing experience is in that moment, that interaction when I actually do have something pretty complicated, you know, can you help me? So love that. Andrea, tell us a little bit about, you know, metrics. Want to hear about how you think about measuring member servicing, member experience.
Yeah, I think going back to your question about quantitative bartender, you know, we want to get, like Mike said, we want to get the sentiment of the member. I think that's very important. And then there's, you know, we talk about their service, their satisfaction, the NPS, but I think that some of it is also something that we have to do on our own. We pull reports all the time about usage. You know, how are they using their debit card? How much they're spending on their debit card? How often are they using it? The online banking platform. How many people are enrolled for e-statements or RDC? We're also looking at the website overall. We're looking at, you know, are they engaging with the content? Are they converting on the website? Are they dropping off? We're looking at key sites and, you know, we consider prime real estate on our website and just seeing, you know, is it having the effect it should? We're looking at everything from our emails too. What's the open rate? What's the click-through rate? I think it's just doing our own homework as to, you know, overall, how are they engaging with everything that we're putting out there for them? It gives us insight as to how satisfied are they. Because, you know, if we go to the website and we have a page on credit cards and we see that, you know, they land there, but they're really not clicking on apply. There's something wrong there. There's something that we need to fix. Or if, you know, we send them an email and they're not even opening it, you know, what can we do better? So I think that you can learn about their satisfaction or just metrics overall just by looking at your information. Just really identifying what are you going to look at, how often are you going to review it, and how are you going to use it. I think just acting on the data that you gather is important. Like I mentioned, that survey that we did, we learned that our members are satisfied, they're happy, but we also learned about areas where we could do a little bit better. And we mentioned fees, and we made sure that we fixed that. We permanently removed certain fees like the international transaction fee. We reduced wire fees by 20%. And then they were also talking about how they'd like another promotional product around savings. So we launched a promotional savings product too to meet their needs. So I think it's just a combination of looking at the data that you have, asking the members, are they satisfied, but also asking the right questions, because sometimes you need to guide them as to, what information are you really looking for. So I think that's basically how we see the metrics overall. And then, like Janine said, we also have, data metrics for the call center or goals at the branch, and we try to engage our staff in owning those goals as well. This is what we're trying to reach, and having them kind of agree with us, and then having them work towards reaching those goals. So
yeah, that's great, and a holistic approach, to both the data around the interactions that are happening, the survey data, but then behavioral data, right? Understanding how they're interacting at different points in the journey. The challenge that poses, of course, is how do you kind of create sort of, I would say, profiles of members, right? How do you think about, this is a member that struggled at this point in the journey, and also, submitted a survey that shows that they were satisfied or unsatisfied with this part of the experience, So you sort of start bucketing. I've seen, a lot of success with bucketing those different types of profiles to understand them, because then when you start combining different data sets, it can be a lot to process. So, but I love that. I think that it's super important, to consider the entirety of the experience, holistically bringing together different sources of data. That's where you can get really powerful insight. Brooke, are you with us? Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right. So let's wrap up this question with you. Tell us a little bit about how you're thinking of metrics, and how did you think about them 6 months ago and today, if anything has changed. If not, feel free to just walk us through the approach to metrics today.
Sure, thanks. So we traditionally would use the NPS, the usage, data, revenue as ways to look at the member experience. But because we're in this exciting times of putting a strategy behind member experience, having a focus on digital evolution, we're also focusing our third pillar on business intelligence. So I'm actually looking at member experience metrics as a clean slate. There is a lot of homework to do to look at every touch point and say, what can we measure? What can be the target? And then how do we measure it? So again, we're recreating how we're going to look at this metric, rely hopefully on the business intelligence program to give us that cohesive, comprehensive data at our fingertips. And then in the meantime, I know Michael had mentioned scorecards. Create a holistic scorecard that captures target and measurements for people, our human capital, which is our fourth pillar, our processes, products, what kind of experiences are we delivering, how are the behaviors we're trying to coach.
We may have lost her. She's out in a remote area, so she's having some connectivity issues, but no problem. If we get her back, we can continue with the answer. We have about 10 minutes right now remaining. So what I want to do is let's shift gears, and we'll give Brooke a chance to come back. I want to talk a little bit about looking to the future. Okay, so let's think about, dare to dream a little bit here. How do we think member servicing and member experience is going to look in 5 years? Janine, do you want to kick us off with this one?
Sure. So this is a kind of an interesting concept. And I already kind of mentioned that the reasons people need us now is different because they don't need us for basic transactions anymore. And I don't see that going away. You see a lot of articles, reports, all kinds of things coming out about how you can't compete on price alone anymore. It's about the relationship, and I just don't think that's going away. We have to look at our products and services of how this adds value, how this is convenient to them. Your consumers seem to be a little bit quicker to leave. It's easier to leave now. So you can't just think, oh, they have a lot of sticky products and ignore it. So I think you really have to look at the entire relationship with the member, a very holistic view of the relationship, and having a way to tie all of that in together and being able to connect with them on every single channel and gauge their satisfaction in that way, constantly being innovative. And that's why it's so important to partner with other vendors that are interested in doing that journey with you. And so having a view of the entire relationship and having multiple ways for them to reach you. There was a really good quote that I pulled out of our strategic plan. I'm just going to read it. It's from FIS Consumer Banking Report. It says, in the age of helicopter banking, consumers expect banks to always be on, to remain distant but accessible, to be a long-term advisor, and to be there in the moment of need. And I'm like, that is so true. It's like they want you to stay away. They're good. They can bank on their own. But when they need you on point. You have to deliver exceptional experience because you may only reach them once a year, if that. I never walk into a branch. I'm totally guilty of this. If I can avoid a phone call, I will. So when I do reach out to you, it's because I really need you, and you've got to be on point. You've got to deliver. You've got to do what you say you're going to do. And I just think that that's the way that all consumers are going, not just in the financial industry, but really in every way. It's the relationship. People are loyal to the company based off the relationship and the experience, not just because of price anymore.
I couldn't agree more. And you don't necessarily gain members in the interaction, but you definitely lose them in the interaction.
Yes, so true.
that's a challenge there that we all are very aware of, right? So, Mike, how about you? Tell us a little bit about your vision into 5 years from now. What does member service look like to you?
Yeah, sure. I think it's very similar to Janine. I mean, really, at the end of the day, from a PSCCU standpoint, our focus is on making sure that the experience for members is very personalized. And that really is, there's a couple of different folds to that. So the first is really just making sure to try to build trust with members and make sure that you are there for them and can help guide them through their journey, whether it's, in today's terms, maybe a year from now, or maybe 5 years from now, just making sure that you're able to meet their needs. And what we've done on our side is we've actually integrated with a few partners to provide that type of personalization technology, whether it's detecting if they're going to have potential issues with their balances or their accounts, or maybe just calling out duplicate charges and things like that. And then the other side of it too, when you think about personalization, there's also a financial and a gain side to this as well. Is if you can be there for them, build the trust, be there for them when they need it, in the channel that they need it, tying everything together, like Janine said, in kind of like a CRM approach to their banking needs. You can provide products and services to them that are not only financially beneficial to the credit union, but also to the member, and that just goes to build more trust and engagement and a better relationship down the road too.
I love that. Mass customization, really understanding digital body language, being able to leverage that and bring that to both the products that you provide, but the experiences overall that you're providing, right? So that the members feel that they have your ear and that you're really listening. That's where that kind of personalization comes into play. All right, 5 more minutes. Let's hear from Andrea on this one. I want to know, what is your view on 5 years from now? How does member service look?
I think today we're all working to make sure that our member service experience in person is as close as it can be online. But I think in 5 years, it's just going to be that expectation that it's equal. And so I think that, to accomplish that, we need the right tools, and with the right tools come the right partners. I think a seamless experience is also important that, as we support our members, whether it's online or through the phone, or even in person, you want to have a seamless experience where you can really provide them the support they need, whether, if you're taking a call and you prefer that video or that in-person service, that you can quickly switch to that, or if you're having a person that's really having a hard time navigating our online banking platform, that you can really help them walk them through the instructions. And sometimes, as a contact center agent, you need to be able to see what they're saying. And so, having the right co-browsing tools and not having to, hang up the call to be able to see what they're saying, just having the right tools to provide the service seamlessly, I think it's critical. And like Mike said, just that trust is key. And like Janine said too, just being available when they need you, how they need you, is also important. There might be somebody that prefers to see you, and there might be someone that prefers to chat or text whenever they're multitasking. So just being available whenever they need it. And I think that today we're working towards that. In 5 years, that's probably going to be expected of us.
Totally. One channel, one seamless experience. I completely agree. Brooke, take it home for us. Future of member servicing.
Well, I have not much to add other than it's hard for me to even think about what the fall is going to look like, yet alone 5 years from now, right? Like all visualizing the future is gone. But getting towards that self-service and the balance of when you can't self-serve, that your interaction with a person is human, a very human experience, right? So with the empathy and knowing your member, there's going to be enough personalization that that relationship, I think, is going to be very detailed. And then meeting our members where they're at. As Andrea was talking about, any way they want to communicate with us, we're ready to flip that switch and do it. But using automation as well in that self-service platform and component, and it being seamless, I think that's where we're going. And I know we're all working on it now. So hopefully 5 years from now, we will have integrated all those things by then.
Love it. Love it. Well, we're just about out of time here. So I wanna first of all thank all of you for taking the time today to sit down with us and share your insights. I believe that there was a lot of really great advice. Hopefully you all learned from each other and all of our guests today were able to take some really actionable tactics away from the discussion. I really thank you for your openness and sharing all of that with us. It was really a pleasure connecting. For all of you else on the call, if you want to learn more about Glia, feel free to visit our website displayed here or scan the QR code. And we look forward to many, many more discussions and collaboration. Keep in mind how important member servicing is now and in the future. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Dan.